Hello, ninth graders. This is going to be a pretty long video. First of all, welcome to week 2 of quarantine school. I hope you're able to enjoy some of this break. I miss you guys a whole lot, and I cannot wait for school to be back in session. So first I want to talk about your assignments from last week. Thank you to those who submitted. You will see grades starting to post in the next day or two. If you have questions on your particular grade, just let me know. I do want to take a minute to go over your assignments and just kind of review the work. So last week you were responsible for working on your study guides for Act 4 and 5. And we were focusing exclusively on Act 4. And I posted a summary video of Act 4. In Act 4, we see Juliet going to Friar Lawrence. They concoct a scheme to get her kind of shuttled out to Mantua. She's going to drink a potion that will make it appear as if she's dead. And then Romeo will come to her rescue and wake her up from her family tomb. So in your packets, you had several questions to answer as well as some quotes and some literary terms. Now, a lot of you were still confused about the literary terms. We've gone over these several times in class, so I do want to review them with you. The first literary term that you had was dramatic irony. And dramatic irony is when the audience knows something that the characters do not. And that's ironic because it leads to characters making poor choices. Comic relief is a funny scene to relieve tension. So, for example, we see Juliet is found dead in her room, or supposedly dead in her room. And then immediately following is a scene with Peter and some musicians. And we're kind of like, this really takes you out of the moment. We're supposed to be sad right now. And they're bantering back and forth and calling each other's names. That is an example of comic relief. The last one, pun, is a play on words. A lot of you guys had difficulty defining this. But a play on words would be our double entendre or our double speak, or the malapropism that we learned in class where they say indict instead of invite. Those are all examples of puns. So for your questions in scene 1, let's review those first. You had 6 questions to answer. The first one says, why is Friar Lawrence reluctant to marry Paris to Juliet? Because he already married her to Romeo. He also knows that Paris won't make her happy, but the main reason is she's already married. Number 2, how does Paris explain the sudden haste of the marriage plans? So Tybalt has died, and he says that Lord Capulet is worried that Juliet is crying too much over Tybalt's death, and that it's not good for somebody to cry alone, so instead they can be together and she can take comfort in his arms. That is his logic. Because Friar Lawrence is like, hey, this is happening awful fast, and Tybalt just died. Don't you think we should just pause for a second? Just take a minute? But that is Paris and Lord Capulet's logic. Number 3. What is ironic about the conversation between Juliet and Paris? So Paris is super happy, but Juliet isn't. And she also uses that double speak again where she says, I will confess to him that I love him. And Paris thinks that she's referring to loving God or loving Friar Lawrence, but really she's talking about Romeo. Paris is like super excited to get married and is lovey-dovey and kissing her, and Juliet's like, ew, you're gross. Number 5, why does Friar Lawrence think Juliet will accept this plan? Because it's a solution. Juliet has said that she is willing to kill herself rather than be married to Paris. So Friar Lawrence is like, hey, I'm giving you an option here that doesn't involve death. Let's explore this for a minute. And then describe the friar's plan for Juliet. We've already talked about this. He is going to have her take a potion. It's going to put her into a deep, deep sleep. She's going to appear as if she's dead. Her blood will slow. Her heart will stop. It's basically kind of putting her in suspended animation. And then Romeo will wake her up from her family tomb, and they will escape together to Mantua. In scene 2, what does Juliet say that makes her father happy? She says that she will finally marry Paris. She's like, oh, I've seen the error of my ways. Friar Lawrence has made me realize I should go forward with this marriage. So let's get it over with. And as a result of that, how does Capulet change the wedding plans, and what implication does this have? Lord Capulet is so happy with Juliet's response that he moves the wedding date from Thursday to Wednesday. And this comes back to haunt Juliet because it messes up the plan that she laid with Friar Lawrence. Friar Lawrence told her to take the potion on Wednesday and he would send word to Romeo. Now, this is being sent by foot. It's going to take a hot minute to get there. Because the wedding has been moved up, now she has to take the potion on Tuesday night, and she will be found dead on Wednesday morning. So the timeline has been sped up, moved up. So we will see how that affects Act 5. In scene 3, how does Juliet show her maturity and independence? So she makes the suggestion to prepare her own clothes for the wedding, to find her best jewelry. She takes charge of the whole thing. And she also takes her destiny into her own hands. She says, the only way that I'm going to be happy is if I go forward with this plan. She almost chickens out and brings the nurse back in, but she realizes, it's time for her to stop relying on other people. She even says, what's the nurse going to do to comfort me? She's going to, blow my cover and ruin this whole thing. She's not on my side anymore. I have to be the one to take charge of my own destiny. If the potion doesn't work, what will Juliet do? She's going to kill herself. She has a lot of fears about this potion. She's afraid it won't work, that it's really poison, that she's going to wake up before Romeo gets there, that she's going to wake up in the tomb and suffocate, that she's going to wake up and be driven crazy by the ghosts of her relatives. Lots and lots of fears. But the one fear that is most pressing to her is the actual marriage itself. And she says if she wakes up before she's put in the tomb, that she's going to solve it herself by killing herself. And she puts her knife right by the bedside just in case. And then the fears that Juliet has about the potion, I just mentioned all of those. What is happening in scene 4? This is a really short scene, and it's just meant to kind of show time passing. Lord Capulet stays up all night, and he's preparing for the wedding. Now, if you stay up all night, and your mind is preoccupied, do you really think you're going to be concentrating on details? So not only Lord Capulet, but Lord Capulet, Lady Capulet, and the nurse all stayed up all night the previous night. So this is probably why they were tricked by Friar Lawrence's potion, because they weren't thinking straight. They hadn't slept. So it's possible that Juliet was still breathing a little bit. It's possible that they could tell that she wasn't really dead, but because they had stayed up all night, they couldn't see that. They just made the worst assumption and went forward with it. In scene 5, Shakespeare uses a lot of imagery to describe Juliet's death. He compares her to a flower, and he personifies death. If you guys will remember, personification is when we give human-like characteristics to non-humans. So in this case, death is an abstract form, but we are giving him actual human-like characteristics. Shakespeare says that Death deflowered her, which is a bit of double entendre, that Death is his son-in-law, Death is Juliet's bridegroom. The focus, again, is on Death being personified. What does Friar Lawrence say to comfort the Capulet family? He says that Juliet is in heaven. The highest honor that Juliet could have achieved was to marry well into a family. And the only thing that the Capulets wanted was for their daughter to marry well and to rise up the social ladder. Because remember, back in Shakespeare's time, and even before that, girls were basically sold off to the highest bidder. They were married for wealth and for power. Well, Friar Lawrence is saying, hey, you know, your greatest aspect for her in life was to rise up the social ladder. Well, she's risen up that social ladder all the way to heaven. There's no suffering. There's, you know, this is the highest honor she could possibly receive. And then now, the event that the Capulets are preparing for is a funeral. You also had to fill out character quotes. So, for character quotes, the first one, the roses in thy lips and cheeks shall fade to waning ashes. Thy eyes' windows fall like death when he shuts up the day of life. Friar Lawrence is the one that said this. My heart is wondrous light, since the same wayward girl is so reclaimed. That was Lord Capulet. I have a faint cold fear thrills through my veins that almost freezes up the heat of life. That was Juliet. Death lies on her like an untimely frost upon the sweetest flower of all the field. This was Lord Capulet. And oh day, oh day, oh day, oh hateful day, never was seen so black a day as this, oh woeful day, oh woeful day. That is the nurse. And then for the timeline, Act 4 takes us from Tuesday morning all the way to Wednesday morning. So Tuesday morning, Juliet and Paris go to Friar Lawrence. Juliet is going for help. Paris is going to arrange the marriage. At noon, the Capulets decide to hasten the wedding. Juliet comes back. She's like, I've seen the error of my ways. So they decide to speed up the wedding. Tuesday night, Juliet takes the potion. Lord Capulet stays up all night and prepares the wedding. And then Wednesday morning, Juliet is found dead in her room, and they start to prepare the funeral. So for this week, you are to basically continue your reading guide. You have 3 more literary terms, which we have gone over these in class before: tragedy, fate, and motive. And then you have questions to complete. I want you to try and have these completed by Wednesday. Okay, sorry for that brief interruption. So you have a few questions. There are only 3 scenes in this act. It's very short. That's why I want you to try and have this done by Wednesday. So you need to do the literary terms, the questions, and then I also want you to do the paraphrase activity. Now you have the benefit on My Shakespeare and on the comic book that they give you some of this information. We have done these paraphrase activities in class before. This shouldn't be too difficult. So you have 1, 2, 3 paraphrases. You also have character quotes, so who said it, and then another timeline activity. That is what I want you to focus on for Wednesday. On Wednesday, I will give you more information on the analyzing theme and cause and effect relationships, as well as, so this is part of the theme activity, and then we will also talk about the eulogy information. Okay? So focus on all of the stuff before the analyzing theme activity. The analyzing theme activity we will talk about on Wednesday. So on Wednesday, we will do analyzing theme, cause and effect, pretty much everything before the eulogy project. Okay? On Wednesday, I will also post a summary of what happens in Act 5, just like last week. And then on Friday, we will talk about the Eulogy Project. The Eulogy Project is meant to be your final grade, and you will have a cumulative test. So keep all of that in mind. I would hold on to your packets for study and review. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. I'm checking email all day long. I mean, pretty much till 10 o'clock at night. I'm checking Edmodo until about 7 o'clock at night. Please, please reach out. If you have questions, or you're confused, or you just want to talk, please reach out. So I think that's everything for today. Your quarantine assignments, that list is posted just like last week. I will touch base with you on Wednesday. See you soon.